What is up, CineNerds?
What's going on?
I am JP, your rock and roll guy tonight.
I'm just Ryan. He's getting fancy with these. I don't know. I guess they're coming up with those now. All right.
You know, and I'm not even like, I'm just randomly.
I know. I saw his eyes. His eyes are like rolling. He's like, "What the fuck can I say?" Oh, rock and roll guy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just making them up as I go.
Yep. Oh boy.
So, what did you select for us to do today?
I chose one I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it is the top 5 movie soundtracks. Because JP and I are both in bands. We both love music. This needed to happen. I'm curious to see what he's going to pick versus what I'm going to pick too, because again, we don't discuss these ahead of time. So I'm wondering if his are going to be more independent, if they're going to be more small, if they're going to be larger ones. So it should be fun.
Or if they're going to be metal, or they're going to be what you never know.
Never know.
Could be hip hop.
Hip hop, hippity hop.
Sorry. CineNerdsPodcast.com. There's links there. Our episodes are there. All of our Spotify, Apple links. Go check it out. Stores there. Reviews. We have written reviews. Schedules there. You can see photos of our handsome mugs. And yeah.
Also, guys, when we're doing these live chats on YouTube and we do these premieres, if you guys like what you're hearing with us, just do us a favor, click that little thumbs up in the corner, hit the share button, send it to your socials, and invite other people to come on in and chat with us, because the more the merrier. We've had some great conversations lately with some of our regular people, our regular folks coming in. We got Rick, we got Jesus, I'm having brain fart here. Come on. Megan. We got Rick, we got Megan, we got
Our normals?
yeah, normals.
We got.
Trying to give him an in to talk here.
I dazed out for a second.
By the way, this is our 5th episode in a row that we're filming, so we're a little out of it.
Jeremy may be in the live chat. We have Brandy. Brandy's a lot of times.
Brandy and Megan are staples. Jeremy's always in there too, but they keep us balanced. They keep us regulated, I feel. Rick pops in too to give us, busting our balls a little bit, reminding me of quality movies that I forgot about. So it's always good.
And there's a few more that pop in and out a lot. So yeah. Two, I want to actually throw this out here, and I keep forgetting to talk about it. But when you go to CineNerds Podcast, if you scroll down to the bottom of any of the pages on the website, there's a little section there that says subscribe, and you can enter your email. If you want to enter your email into that and click subscribe, I can email updates with when we do a written reviews, or if we have new episodes coming out. I can actually send emails out to everybody who has subscribed to us from there. So if you'd like to do that, go on there and do it.
And the reason that's so important, and I'll shut up and we'll get into this. The reason that's so important is because just before we had this session, JP and I are both chatting, and we might be looking at doing some cons, some different fun going on, getting outside of our normal scope of things, going out and doing some live screenings, things like that. We're gonna try and be a little more diverse on what we're doing in the next year. So pay attention and subscribe.
And that's the way to stay in the know.
All right, into the top 5 soundtracks we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, okay. All right. Am I going first?
Go for it.
All right. So I did something a little bit different. I didn't tell JP I was going to do this. So mine is going to be 2 in each spot because I'm doing a soundtrack and a score. So for the number 5, I chose the Spawn soundtrack because that one is amazing. If you have not seen the Spawn soundtrack, just to point out a few unbelievable little things with it. You've got Filter and Crystal Method coming together, Marilyn Manson, Sneaker Pimps, Kirk Hammett and Orbital, Korn and the Dust Brothers, Butthole Surfers and Moby. I mean, it goes on and on. Henry Rollins and Goldie, that one's one of my favorites. So that one is spectacular. That aside, though, for the score in number 5 spot, I chose the score to 2001: A Space Odyssey. thought that was pretty freaking amazing. So that's where I'm at there.
Yeah, there's the solids, and I did not do scores. I just did soundtracks. So,
Yeah, I figured I'd throw a little curveball in there, so that's on me for not telling him, and I
Yeah.
decided that today too. So I'm sorry.
yeah, he could have clued me in on that one.
That's fine. I'll keep it a little interesting.
Yeah, that soundtrack's okay. It's not a go-to for me, but it's a unique one. I will give it that. And Space Odyssey, I mean, yeah, that's an iconic score,
sure.
you know. So yeah, my number 5. This was one that was put together by Trent Reznor. Natural Born Killers.
I legit was positive you would put this on here, so that's the only reason I did not choose it. It is a phenomenal soundtrack. By
It
the
is
way.
a phenomenal
It is excellent.
soundtrack, and there's so many great bands on it. Just not even the soundtrack stuff that Trent did, like just the bands that he put on
Oh
it
my
alone.
God,
Like
yeah.
there's so many. Like you had like L7 with Shit List. You had
Shit
so many.
List, Burn by Nine Inch Nails on that is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Burn from Nine Inch Nails. There's so many like rock and roll songs on it. Like it's just a fucking really diverse rock and industrial and grunge, and it's punk rock. It's got a touch of everything in it, and that soundtrack is just it's one of my favorite soundtracks.
That is a fair and wonderful number 5. Are you ready for me to go into the next one?
Yeah, you go
All
right
right, we'll
ahead.
keep it moving.
Yeah,
All right.
we've got a lot of honorable mentions, so I'm sure
yeah.
we'll.
I mean, well, you might have a lot. I don't have a lot, honestly, of the honorable mentions.
I've got a
Again,
lot.
we discussed this when we did our top 5 for the comedies. So again, these are kind of like what we're feeling right now. These aren't per se like this could change next week. It could change tomorrow. Just what we're feeling.
Absolutely.
Right now. Yeah, especially music. We all know how that goes. It's all about moods. So my soundtrack is a twofer on this one. This is The Crow 1 and 2, and I don't mean anything or in no way do I want to associate the piece of shit that came out last year with the Crow 1 and 2 soundtrack because they're amazing. On the first soundtrack, you had The Cure with Burn, Machines of Love and Grace, SDP, Nine Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Violent Femmes, Rollins Band, Helmet, Pantera. It just keeps going. And then on the second one, which is I love because you have the Deftones doing my favorite Deftones song, Teething, in the movie, which is also on the soundtrack. You got Korn on there with Sean Olsen, Spit, Seven Mary 3, Tricky and Gravediggers, Bush, PJ. Just so good. Both those soundtracks I thought were some of the best soundtracks that people actually took the time to put the love and care into that needed to be there. And even more fun on the first soundtrack, there's the It Can't Rain All the Time, which goes away from the metal and the heavy grungy stuff, and it's just this soft singing voice about the whole premise of the movie and saying it can't rain all the time with the characters. So I enjoyed that. The score on this one for number 4 for me. Some might say this should go up higher. I know, but for me, it's sitting here. But Shawshank Redemption, the score to that was pretty spectacular.
All right, so my number 3 just so happens, and I know I'm skipping my 4.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what?
My number 3 just so happens to be The Crow and / City of Angels.
Crow 2.
The first 2 Crow films. That is my number 3. So your number 4 is my number 3 because everything you just said. Sean Olsen, Teething is like my favorite Deftones song. You also had Filter's Dracitol on that sound, and that's like my favorite Filter song. The first one, like the STP song alone. That song,
Big Empty's great.
Yeah, Big Empty's so good.
For me, when you go back to the Deftones Teething thing, first of all, I did not know that was a B-side on Adrenaline when I first heard it. I thought it was just for this movie. Glad it was a B-side, made me appreciate it even more. But the way the progression happens in the chord structure, the way that it builds and progresses, like it makes my arm hair stand up and makes me hyped.
Yeah, and both those soundtracks are just so fucking iconic, and I couldn't pick just like you. I couldn't pick one or the other. They're equally as amazing.
They were well thought out
for different reasons.
I don't even know what's on that new shit show that came out last year's soundtrack, and
I still haven't seen the movie, so I couldn't. I don't know.
And I haven't either. so I shouldn't be judging it as harshly as I am. I should go see it and take my own words of wisdom. But I just trust too many people have told me about it, and
That is, yeah.
and that's the problem I'm having.
I have a feeling if at some point when I'm sure it's probably streaming someplace now. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it is.
What's it streaming on?
I just saw it. I don't know. I
If it pops on something that I have that is streaming on, I may eventually watch it, but I'm not going to pay to watch
No.
it. So yeah, sorry about. I thought I was going to sneeze. Okay, so my number 4. Let me actually get to my number 4. Dazed and Confused.
I knew he was going to do this one too. The only reason I say that is because of when we did the Half Baked episode, and we were talking about the movies and how much you love that movie.
Yeah, and that soundtrack, I love old rock and roll, and that's all that soundtrack is. I mean, you've got Alice Cooper, you've got, I think, like Fog Hats on there. You got, because you got songs like Slow Rides on there. You've got School's Out's on there. It's just a freaking amazing, just old 70s rock and roll time period piece, and that whole soundtrack, I can put that soundtrack on and just drive down the road and have a good time doing it and not even skip a song.
Yeah.
It's just one of those soundtracks.
All right. So after I do my 3, should I go to 2 then? Since that was the order originally, and get us back to the order?
I'll just do an honorable mention to fill that gap.
Fair. All right, so for 3, my soundtrack for that one is a little ditty that you guys may or may not know called Judgment Night. I loved the Judgment Night soundtrack because
I knew you were going to put this one in here.
So this one to me was spectacular because I kind of have touched on it in some of the other soundtracks, and you'll see a theme occurring here. I love when you have collaborations. I love seeing, so in this instance, most of this album, because of the context of the movie, it took metal and hip hop and put them together when you normally wouldn't be getting them in this time period. So just to give some examples, so you got Helmet and House of Pain, Living Color and Run DMC, Biohazard and Onyx, the Judgment Night theme song. Faith No More and Booyah Tribe is probably my favorite song in this entire thing, and the song's called Another Body Murdered. Like, I could go on and on with this one, but Judgment Night is an amazing soundtrack. If you have not watched the movie, it's an Emilio Estevez classic.
Much like Young Guns.
Oh my God, that's a great movie. And 2. I like 2 better, actually. But I definitely recommend you check that out as well as listen to the soundtrack. But the score for this one, for my number 3, was a little movie. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't know. Indiana Jones with Mr. Williams. So there we go.
I'm sure like your top 3 scores are all going to be made by John Williams.
No. Just 2 of them.
I know what the number 1 is then.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So I'm just going to do an honorable mention since we doubled up on one that on our picks. So I'm going to, and this one actually I had it in my top 5 and I took it out. So I'm going to talk about this one. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Really? I was not expecting that.
Love that soundtrack, and I love that fucking movie. And I love from North Carolina. I'm from the mountains of North Carolina. We grew up on bluegrass and country, so this bluegrass album is so good with like the Soggy Bottom Boys song and the iconic Old Death song. Like just the music in this film, all the bluegrass is just it's my thing. I love it. I fucking love it. I'm here for it, and that soundtrack is just it's great.
All right. So that puts me at 4. Or no, sorry, number 2. Sorry,
Number 2.
When I put my bullet points in my notes on my phone, wouldn't let me.
Are we gonna have any of the top 2 of the same?
Maybe, I don't know. I doubt it.
I doubt it.
My number 2 is another twofer. This is but I did this because it's hard because of the director being who he is and what style he brings to the table for his music selections in his movies, and it is Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs. I love Quentin's ability to take an old school song. He kind of Kubricks it, if I have to be honest. So in Clockwork Orange, you have Singing in the Rain when Alex is kicking the person in the head and it just goes to the song. He kind of picks those songs to be strategically placed throughout his films, and it always it flows so great. So I love both those films. I love that on the Reservoir Dogs soundtrack too. Harvey Keitel is actually on the soundtrack and part of it, so that was kind of cool too. Let's see who else we got. Most of the whole thing is Stephen Wright that they're doing this, and there's the Madonna speech part too. There's just every part of it, even the vocal tracks and the quotes and the things that he puts into it. Again, well thought out, great structure to the soundtrack to complement the movie. It's not just here's a movie with some shit songs. It's thought out and it means something. So I'm definitely all over those. And then for my score for the number 2 spot, the score for Blade Runner. Because Blade Runner,
that makes sense.
So when you listen to that though, it's definitely got the sci-fi aspect thrown into it, but it's done in such a way that it just feels good. It's comfortable. It's relaxing, but it's got that futuristic vibe to it. I'm a big fan of falling asleep with YouTube on listening to frequencies and things like that. And so when I put this on for a calming effect, because I put the soundtrack on often, it helps. It's awesome.
Yeah, I had that one I didn't even think about, but yeah, that makes sense. I get why you picked that one. My number 2, and I fucking love this movie, and this movie is kind of centered around music in general. Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
That's on my honorable mentions. Fuck yeah.
Scott Pilgrim.
Dude, it's such a good movie.
It's such a good movie and such a great soundtrack with the rock and roll songs that Scott Pilgrim's playing throughout the whole film. Like, and it's like all like just original fucking songs and shitty fucking garage songs, but it works.
Some of the songs from their band that are actual bands, but they're fake band in the movie, those are the ones like there's just something about the way that the distortion is used and the bass, the way that it rolls,
it's very White Stripes and
even
some of it.
If you took the industrial element out of it, even Ministry, even when I just did that, I thought about that. That's weird.
Yeah, like that. Everything I can just put that on and just listen to it. Like it's just. You can put the soundtrack on and just feel like you're watching the fucking movie. It's just so solid. Like I don't even know what else to say about it. It's just if you've never watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World, then stop what you're doing right now.
Oh my God,
go watch it.
It's one of those movies where you're just like you go into it and you don't think it's gonna be as good as it is, and as it unfolds, you're like, this is a genius film. It's so good.
And I don't even care for what's his name that plays Scott Pilgrim, but he's perfect in the fucking movie.
We might have to review that one at some point, I think.
So,
oh wow, are we already here?
You're already number one. Yeah. So
wow.
we got a lot more to talk about. Obviously, we're blowing through these, but yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other ones that can spin off from this. So, my favorite soundtrack of all time. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I have no regrets about this, and I don't care what anyone says. Flash Gordon. Fucking, it is Queen's cinematic masterpiece of an opera. It is so fucking well done, well thought out, that just, if you can close your eyes and you hear the bum, 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 and it turns up and you start hearing the, it's one of my alarms. It's so fucking good. I can listen to that soundtrack back to front over and over. It's amazing, front to back, whatever. There's not a whole lot like it because that's one of those ones that it's the score, but it's the soundtrack because there's a lot of parts without the lyrics, but the lyrics, when they're there, they matter. And if you feel it and you're like, you get that heroic vibe because Flash Gordon's just a great film. And when Capitol Theater re-released, they did one of the midnight showings they had put Flash Gordon on the screen because I was too young to see it in the theater. I was fucking first one in line. There wasn't that many people in the theater. It was maybe like 30 people in the theater, but I was a first motherfucker in line because I wanted to hear that soundtrack on the speaker system and just enjoy every moment of it, and I did. So that one is solid. And
I had forgotten about that one. I'm glad you said, because I didn't even put that one on mine, and I loved that
dude,
movie
it's
and loved that
so good.
soundtrack. Yeah.
The movie and the soundtrack just go so they're just again well thought out. And Freddie Mercury, like one of the things that I will always give him credit for is his flawless nature in planning music out. He had his mind made up, his ears were in tune, he knew what he wanted to do, had a vision, and between him and Brian May's unique sound, all the band members really, it was stunning what came out of that. And then if I have to go with my number one score, JP, you have a guess?
Empire Strikes Back.
No.
What?
So Empire is part of it, but I did Star Wars original trilogy. I did all of it because there's so many fucking.
Oh, so you did the whole trilogy.
I did.
Okay. Well, because the score in 2 is way superior to Empire is way superior to A New Hope, and
Only with Han's theme. Han's theme, I'll give you that. But the rest of it is the iconic Star Wars stuff from the original. So and then when you even went into, it was so hard to decipher because you get to Return of the Jedi, and now we're in a position where I'm like, okay, these are starting to get into those like epic moments where like that music, like before they added the fucking no into Vader, which the Frankenstein no on Vader pissed me off so bad I won't even get started on it. But to me, there was a moment where I didn't need a sound or a voice on Vader. And when he's looking between Emperor Palpatine and Luke getting electrocuted by Palpatine, he's looking back and forth. And all you needed was the goggles. The goggles literally had so much fucking emotion, to me maybe only, but there was so much being said there as he was torn, going back and forth from his master to his son, and he didn't know what to do, and he did the right thing, obviously, but that emotion was caught in those goggles. But without that music, without that soundtrack, those right moments with that just harrowing strings behind it and all these wonderful sounds coming together to make it all the more beautiful and fill that emotion, until they turn it down and put no. Anyways, sorry, I'm a little bitter about that. It's the same one they used from the from Revenge of the Sith when they made Vader and he's walking off the platform doing the Frankenstein walk.
Hated that so much.
When he pulls off of the table and he is saying the no thing, that pissed me off immensely. But when he starts crushing everything in the room, I was like, that's cool. All right, that's cool. And then that noise came out of him. And then they used that same audio clip in Return of the Jedi. I was like, now you're just fucking being lazy.
Well, I mean, no different than using the what do you call it, scream.
That we hear in all movies,
movies.
Skywalker sound, yeah. I'll never be able to copy that. When you hear it, you know it, though. It's pretty much anytime somebody gets shot or falls off something and they scream, it's the same effect you hear on the stormtroopers and they die.
Yeah. It has a particular name, and I can't think of what it is. It starts with a W. It's like, because it was the name of not the Indian, but the cowboy that got shot with an arrow in a Western. And
was it?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know the story to this.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole thing that, like, I think it was the scream came from a movie before then, but then they reused it in a Western, and then that Western was one that made it popular. And so at that point...
the Wilhelm scream.
Wilhelm scream, yeah. And so at that point, studios just took that scream and they insert it in all kinds of random movies. And Lucas loves that scream, so he uses it constantly throughout all the Star Wars.
I think he has rights to that, though, doesn't he?
I think it's open to the public.
Because usually whenever I hear that, it's affiliated with Skywalker sound.
Yeah, but everybody,
so,
it's open. Everybody can use it. It wasn't a sound that Lucas made. It was a different studio that did it. It's just...
So the Wilhelm scream is a stock sound effect first recorded in 1951 for the movie Distant Drums.
Yes.
It has been featured in over 400 movies and TV series since, alongside a certain recording of the cry of the red-tailed hawk, the universal telephone ring, and Castle Thunder. It is probably the most well-known cinematic sound in history.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It was provided by actor-singer Sheb Woolley. That's a name for you, Sheb Woolley. Man, some of these names back in the day were insane.
Yeah, so that scream is stock footage, and yeah, George Lucas loves that scream and uses it constantly.
Wilhelm's revival came from the Star Wars sound designer Ben Burt, who tracked down the original recording. So that's interesting. Okay, I just learned something about Star Wars today.
Yep.
That doesn't happen too often.
So, my number one,
Let's go.
two-parter.
All right.
It's a two-parter, two completely different movies. However, it's a two-parter because the two movies use the exact same songs and have re-recorded all these exact same songs with different singers on both soundtracks and made them their own and on both soundtracks, which is why this is a two-parter.
I'm going to feel dumb when he says what this is because I'm probably going to know it, but I didn't know there's two different
versions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, technically, there would be three different versions, but there's two different versions for these two films. You're gonna know what it is as soon as I say it.
Should I drink my water first to spit it out?
Go ahead. Get it in your mouth.
He's been waiting to say that all episode.
Across the Universe
And yesterday.
We
just talked about these. Holy shit.
So, Across the Universe is obviously it's a musical that revolves around the Beatles, and the soundtrack is completely every song is a Beatles song, and they're all every song has been sung by the actors in the film. They re-recorded all these Beatles songs. And the soundtrack for Across the Universe is so amazing. There is moments in that soundtrack, and I'm such a big Beatles fan, but the way they re-recorded some of these songs, there's moments that I actually get teared up because they did such a unique versions of these songs, and they're so good. The second one, Yesterday, which is a Danny Boyle film, is not a musical style, but he plays, essentially it's almost a science fiction film that's not a science fiction film, but basically the power goes out all across the world, and when the power comes back on, nobody knows who the Beatles didn't exist.
So I haven't seen this one yet.
And so the guy, he wrecks his bike, and he's a musician when the power goes out, and when he wakes up from he's in a coma or something for like a day or so. When he wakes up, he's the only person. Well, you find out there's a few other people, but he's basically the only person that remembers the Beatles and remembers the songs. Nobody else knows because they didn't exist in this timeline. And he decides that he wants to play these Beatles songs. So he starts re-recording and rewriting these Beatles songs because the world without the Beatles isn't a world that he wants to live in. He wants
it's a little intense, but
wants these songs to live on. He wants people need to hear these songs is kind of where his mindset is. And so he spends the whole movie rewriting and trying to remember how to play these songs. And his versions of these songs are really fucking good too. Like it's, if you're a Beatles fan, and I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, you can't redo the Beatles." Well, let me tell you, they did it in both of these soundtracks, and I'm a massive Beatles fan, and I appreciate these soundtracks for what they are. They are so good, so good.
People who say you can't recreate the Beatles too, like that, I don't agree with that because you have to look at all of the good that's come from them and the bands they've influenced. Now that said, do you know my story of the Beatles? Have I ever told you about the Beatles?
I don't remember right off.
So my entire life until I met my wife, I stood on and planted the flag on and was going to die on the hill of saying the Beatles were an overrated band that I couldn't stand. My wife listened to the Beatles so much around our kids as they're growing up that I started singing the songs in my head. I'm in the background. Then the movie Across the Universe came out. And not only did I not care for the Beatles at all, but if you don't know, I hate fucking musicals. And Across the Universe is essentially a musical. Beatles music focused. So Strawberry Fields, the way that's played in that movie is fucking beautiful. What's the song Across the Universe? Beautiful. The way they did Revolution, it couldn't have been done better because this is a period piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's this group of friends, group of people, and how they're all living through this period, and how these songs are applicable to their lives in those moments. And the guy goes into a recruiting station, and because his girlfriend is working there, and he's freaking out about it, and he starts just throwing everything around, and it's the song Start a Revolution. He's, the whole, you hear the distortion kick in and the anger's there in his eyes. He's throwing stuff all over. It worked so well. It was just so good. It's a beautiful movie, start to finish. I definitely want to check out Yesterday. I'm curious about how that gets executed. I haven't seen that.
And as a Danny Boyle fan, I mean, I know you like a lot of Danny Boyle films with Sunshine and 28 Days Later, Trainspotting. It's a Danny Boyle film.
I'm actually shocked you didn't bring up Trainspotting soundtrack because that's on my honorable mention.
It's I started putting my honorable mentions and I didn't. Yeah, I actually had to look to make sure see if it was there or not.
The last day we were filming, I showed up and he was just randomly watching Trainspotting again. So I thought for sure that would have been in there.
Why not? I like Danny Boyle films. So Yesterday. Yeah, I think you'll love Yesterday. And like when that movie came out that year, it was like my favorite movie of that year, and favorite indie movie of that year.
Okay.
But yeah, it's such a good movie, and if you have any appreciation for the Beatles, you're going to love that movie.
Yeah, and by the way, my story was because now I do care for the Beatles. It's more so because when you see your kids singing music and it's bringing your kids together and your kids are remembering words and they care about it and something to do magical with their mom, like to me, like that was more empowering than the actual hearing of the song. Like that showed me the weight of what the Beatles can do, because the music's just, it seems like most of their music's all positive. It all has some kind of an energy about it that is appealing, that brings people together. It's solid. So
honorable mentions.
Yes, sir.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. One of my favorite music-oriented films, Rock and Roll High School.
Okay, that's fair.
Fucking punk rock as hell. It's Ramones start to finish.
Yeah.
They play live in the fucking movie for like not just a minute. Like they play live in the movie for like 40 fucking minutes straight. It's the Ramones. The whole movie is the fucking Ramones. If you know me on a personal level, you know I fucking love the Ramones. I have a Joey Ramone fucking statue and toy in the next room. Like, I'm a massive Ramones fan. So, Rock and Roll High School.
So I'll give, I guess, because they're both kind of the same for me, but I'm gonna give you two for my first honorable mention, and it's Vision Quest and Rocky, because again, I wrestled for a long time, and when I had my headphones in, everyone thought, because I was Mr. Metal Punk guy, and they thought I was listening to that, but I was really listening to those soundtracks because the music on it was so like motivational, because you watch these movies and you see the kids get hyped in the movies and they rise to victory. It had this whole vibe, and I mean, let's be honest, if you don't hear Eye of the Tiger and feel like you should be getting up and doing something, like, I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't know, spectacular for me.
So, the one thing that I haven't put on my top 5, I did not put a metal one, really. It kind of was City of Angels, Crow City of Angels, but I really didn't go too much into it like a metal soundtrack. So, I'm gonna throw an honorable mention to a metal soundtrack, and it's probably one of my favorite metal soundtracks. Escape LA.
Oh, great. Yeah.
John Carpenter's
Solid.
Escape LA. There's so many good fucking songs on that album. I mean, there's the White Zombie song, not Rob Zombie, it was White Zombie, doing the Escape LA theme song. You had bands like Downset. There was a lot of like punk bands and new metal bands and rock bands, all of that time. Like you had early Sugar Ray when it was good Sugar Ray.
Every morning.
Nah, before then when Sugar Ray was still punk metal. It was such a good soundtrack. So if you never checked out the Escape LA soundtrack, that one was fantastic.
My next one is what we just discussed, though, is Trainspotting. That was one of mine. So since we already kind of chatted about that, because that is amazing in itself, I'm going to go over to another one that this is a movie that we've dabbled around reviewing a few times over. We have yet to do it yet because the topics are super heavy, but SLC Punk. The soundtrack to that, I mean, you talk about punk. I mean, oh my God, is that good? So, I mean, and any soundtrack that has Fear on it alone, I'm like, okay, gold, we're good.
Velvet Goldmine.
I am not familiar.
You never seen Velvet
Nope.
Goldmine? Velvet Goldmine. It's actually basically it's based on Ziggy Stardust. So like all the music
Ooh.
is very Ziggy Stardust influenced. It's not like a biopic, but it's a different movie. It also stars Christian Bale. And there's a lot of recognizable people, but if you're like the early if you're a fan of like a lot of 70s music, especially like Ziggy Stardust and stuff, you're going to love the soundtrack. And if you never saw the movie, you're going to love the movie if you're into that if you were into that scene.
I got two more. One of them's a twofer again, but two more. You'll know why the twofer is happening though once you hear what's going on. Batman 1989, Michael Keaton, because Prince. And to piggyback off that, Purple Rain.
Prince.
Yes. So that in itself, like if you can't appreciate those soundtracks, I don't know. Don't say hi to me next time we see you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I've got multiple more, but I'll hit a stopping point here. I'll do two more. Quadrophenia. The Who.
Oh, I'm aware of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Took me a second.
You just The Who.
The Who.
I mean, period. I'm a huge Pete Townsend fan. So like, yeah, that soundtrack was you just can't top that. I mean, Tommy. I could go with Tommy too. You know, Tommy was a great soundtrack, especially with like the Elton John stuff on the Tommy. Like I love like Pinball Wizard and shit like that. So like, any of the stuff that the Who did in that little time period, it was so good.
I can do two more. I lied.
I'll finish up with I'm gonna do a '90s one, and this one might throw you. You might not have realized I would have put this one on here because this was just a really cool '90s soundtrack. Like bands like the Violent Films and bands like that were on it. The Romeo and Juliet soundtrack.
Oh yeah, that was great.
That was a great just rock 90s rock
Dude,
soundtrack.
Is it? I think Sneaker Pimps on that.
Sneaker Pimps are on
phenomenal.
there. Yeah.
Such a good fucking. I would die. That's good
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. It was a great soundtrack.
For sure. Okay, so I got two more then, and I'm gonna wrap it up as well. So my first one I'm gonna talk about is Tron Legacy, because it's literally Daft Punk start to finish. So it's just very fitting of the entire soundtrack that goes with the entire movie. More of a score, but it's one of those ones that, because it's techno, you feel the moments up and down. You feel the if you were put it on while you're running or something, there's those moments that get your heart rate accelerated, and there's moments that chill too. It's a very wonderful soundtrack. And the last one, this one's more aimed at my 12-year-old, because I love when something's done and it appeals to, it brings a younger generation who might not otherwise go out and listen to certain bands. It brings them into the fold. And I'm going to say Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's on my honorable mentions. I was just going to bypass because I put so many rock and roll soundtracks anyway. I was just like, But it's a great soundtrack.
But
all of them.
He would probably never, like, I always encourage him to listen to new things, and he's got excellent taste in music. I mean, he listens to my band all the time, so it just gives you. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, he probably, like, he requests to hear that all the time. Wants to know about the bands. He talks to my wife and I about the bands. That might not have happened with a 10 to 12-year-old kid otherwise, but soundtracks like that help with the youth, because he's watching the movie for the movie and he doesn't realize it. And you see Peter Quill doing all these great moves and dancing to these things and listening to the soundtrack, and there's that correlation between his mom and him, and he's got that relationship with his mom. It's great. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. And I actually have that one on here, and really all three of the Guardians.
Yeah. All the
soundtracks,
volumes,
yeah, all the volumes are fucking good, you know. And James Gunn, he's usually pretty good. He's a big music guy, so he he likes those rock and roll.
I was going to tell
soundtracks.
you the last episode we did because I started bringing up my concerns about Superman, and
Here we go again.
He was very put off by this. So I'm just going to say this: if anyone can execute bring multiple characters into one movie, I will give James Gunn that credit. He did do that successfully with Guardians 1, 2, and 3. He is spectacular, and I give him credit there. So I am hopeful of what we will get out of Superman.
It'll definitely be better than my made-for-TV Justice League of America
Oh boy, here we go.
film I just picked up. So
That never was made for TV, or never made it to TV.
it was aired overseas someplace on TV, but was never aired in America. Even though it's the Justice League of America.
Yikes.
All right. That is our movie soundtracks.
So do us a favor in the comments. Throw us your, if you haven't already, for those of you who are listening in the live chat, throw us your favorite soundtracks, your what movies meant something to you with the soundtrack and why, and we'd love to hear about it.
And yeah, we'll be in the chat. So yeah.
All right, good shit. You got any recommendations before we close it up?
Do you have one?
I do.
Go ahead.
All right. So recently I had the pleasure, and I say this because of what I'm about to say, I had the pleasure of watching The Wild Robot. And I got to say, this was spectacularly done. Was not expecting it. As soon as I finished it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go watch. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to go watch the movie Flow because JP raved about that movie as well.
Oh.
And that's another post-apocalyptic animated film.
So did you enjoy that one?
I haven't watched Flow yet.
Oh, okay.
That's why I just said, like, I'm going to watch that because Wild Robot was done so well, and you spoke so highly of Flow that now I want to see it.
Yeah,
So.
and I love Flow. Especially I'm a cat person, and it revolves around a cat. So
I'm a cat dog person.
So yeah, like I had a blast with that one. So, I wanted to, I rebought this a month or two ago on digital, and it's one I haven't watched in a minute, but I always enjoyed it. So it's an older film, The Faculty.
Oh, okay.
I just did a rewatch on The Faculty, and some of the CGI is shit. Is the time period. But I love that movie. I mean, it's kind of the that time period, that early 2000s version of The Thing, almost. So yeah, it's a fun film, and I've been spending a lot of time this past week rewatching Home Improvement, the Tim Allen sitcom that came out in the 90s.
I fucking love that show, by the way.
I've loved every minute of it. It's been fun as
What was
hell.
the one he did another sitcom though?
Last Man Standing.
That was great too.
I love
That was
Last
really
Man
good.
Standing. Like, even when they recasted people, I still enjoyed it. Like, I liked Last Man Standing, and I've rewatched it a couple times too.
Yeah, definitely a solid show. Anything Tim Allen really does. I saw him at a hockey game yesterday, and there's a divider between him and these little kids. And the kids, I think one of the kids wrote down something that he said in a show, and he put it against the glass, and he looked at him like, because it was kind of like a threatening remark, and Tim Allen goes like this, like, I'm gonna whop you, like that. He put his fist up, shook it at him. Well, Tim Allen took it upon himself to come around and meet these kids and sit with them for a minute, and I just think that's cool. I think that's so stand up sometimes.
Yeah, I like Tim Allen. A lot of people hate on him, but I enjoy Tim Allen. So, alrighty. Remember, CineNerds podcast.com. That's it.
All right. You guys take it easy. Later.
Later.